Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the High Plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and just like a David Spade routine from Saturday Night Live, tonight we're going to say bye-bye to fall sports. We're going to have Ty Hyatt, the head coach of Greyhound football. We're going to have Josh Harden, the head coach of Greyhound cross country, and one of his runners, Lauren Griego. I'll finish up with a fall-themed overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Greyhound men's and women's basketball opened up the season last weekend with games up at New Mexico Highlands. For the Greyhound guys, they lost on a buzzer beater to Fort Lewis and then came back and decisively defeated New Mexico Highlands the next day. For the Greyhound ladies, it was just the opposite. They thumped Fort Lewis by 15 points on Friday and then lost a heartbreaker to New Mexico Highlands on Saturday. Both teams will have a doubleheader on November 23rd. Both teams will play a doubleheader on November 26th at the Greyhound Arena. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so we'll clear the set and we'll bring in Ty Hyatt from Greyhound football right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we bring back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound football, Ty Hyatt. And Coach, there's a round object that has made its way back to the Greyhound Arena, courtesy of the football team.
Yeah, no, that's we're pretty excited to be able to have the wheel back. Pretty excited to be able to hang that back up in the arena, and looking forward to adding the next street sign with the score and having the wheel back for everyone to be able to have it here for another year.
Well, Coach, obviously, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you because sometimes coaches think on a higher level, more critical thinking skills than I have. Wagon wheel the high point of the season, or would you look at a game like maybe against Angelo, the highest rated team that we played all year, where you guys had a lead? So what was the high point of the season?
I would definitely say, just this year, you go through tough seasons and you have injuries and, you're kind of working out kinks in your team and just youth and those things. But definitely one of the highest moments was the wagon wheel game of just being able to really have things come together. You battle through so many different things, and to be able to have it happen the way that it happened with all the adversity that we had leading up to the game, and being able to do it there, I thought was pretty special.
Yeah, and to recapitulate for people that may not remember, it was a blustery day over in Canyon. We were playing at their facility. Big crowd. We were coming off a loss. I mean, there were a lot of things that were working against us, but you guys managed to get the W. So what was it that allowed you to triumph?
I've thought a lot about that, just with trying to figure out why, with the stars aligning. And like you said, like the week before, we had a game that we still feel we should have won. And then you go through that week, and there's so many different things that happen with like the water here in town. Usually we day trip it, and we left the whole day early because we didn't have everything we needed. And I really think sometimes as a coach, you go through and you think of like all the distractions, everything that could go wrong. And in a way, I thought it was almost a rallying point for our kids with everything that had happened. You just talk about the things that you can't control, but you can't control your emotion, your focus, your preparation, all of those things. And I think it just really ultimately collectively came out in those 60 minutes, and really be able to play our best game all year.
Well, as it turned out, we actually had a couple of different cameras in operation that day. So we've got a really cool 4-minute highlight segment. So let's cue it up and please walk us through it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was in the first quarter. Again, two players that I thought played really well that day. Asa one day, Asa has been a great player for us all year. And then Case and Martin, really good quarterback, and I thought he had his best game. And you as you start to watch these highlights and go through it, again, you just talk about the execution all day. Like right here, we have a kick return by Greg Thomas, and just really good effort. Like you see kids playing to the echo of the whistle and continuing to fight and do all those type things. I thought that we ran the ball really well that day. The running game came on really well towards the end of the year, and especially you have kids like that with Isaiah Tate or a new player like number 30 Tim Jones, who came this semester and just really embracing the meaning of that game and just how significant it is when we play WT. Um, Up front, I thought WT had some really big offensive linemen, and I thought our kids did a great job of being able to stop the run, like with Aselli and James right here, and just continuing to play, especially when you're in a situation where, like you said, they had a big crowd, a lot of momentum, all those different things. Like right here with number 3, Howard Russell. Howard's, like, I would argue, the most explosive player in the conference. Really hard to tackle. Like right here, he's making probably like half the team miss and being able to carry the football. Um, but the thing that I love watching here as a coach is, everyone's excited for each other. You've got teammates that are celebrating with each other, and being able to just, be able to execute at a high level. Um, Again, Asa ended up leading the conference in touchdowns and in receiving yards. And so for him, he set a conference record on Saturday with 15 catches in the game. So I just thought that that was great of him to be able to play, and a kid that we'll talk about later in the day, but Tyree Cherry, it was really his best game all season long, and for him to be able to do that in that moment, I thought was really special. This clip has a lot of meaning because Keontae Stoker, who'd been able to play running back for us and done such a good job towards the end of this last year, that was his first career touchdown. So for him to be able to score in a significant game and have that one be his first touchdown, obviously be a moment that he'll just be able to remember forever.
And he helps his offensive lineman up. I like that.
Yeah, he does. He really does. This was a play that we've ran all year. We've ran it 5 times, and probably shows you how smart of a coach I am. We're 5 for 5 on it, so we should probably do it a little bit more. But again, that was just such a momentum swing right there because Aseli Finau had blocked the punt before, and so for us to be able to score on a third down, to be able to take the lead in the fourth quarter. This was a really big third down play because this was the start of the 2-minute drive to be able to get the game winning score. And we talk about, it's you got to get the score, but you got to get that first down.
And
then
here's the play.
Yeah, this is just a great protection. I thought it was a tremendous throw, and then obviously with Tyree to be able to make that catch, and you just knew, the ball was in the air. It hung up for a little bit. Um, but man, like I just knew, like if we had the protection that Tyree was going to be able to make that catch. And you just talk about all the stars aligning. What a great spot for the cameraman to be in, everything to be able to get that last touchdown. And then by this time of the game, you start to play the lateral game with being able to throw it up the field, toss it back as many times as possible. But I think the thing that you really love as a coach, and just so excited about the momentum of winning that game towards the end of the year, carrying into the next year, is just being able to see all these kids charge the hill. And as a coach and in Eastern's program, it's really something that you can't explain. It's really something that it's really hard to describe. Just that feeling of being able to charge the hill with the players, the coaches, everybody, and definitely a moment and a feeling that you'll never forget. And excited to be able to take that feeling into the off season of just working towards next year.
And I may be biased, obviously, because I'm your play-by-play guy, but I honestly think that that was such an emotional win. I mean, you had to overcome so many circumstances, as you pointed out, that I I wasn't surprised by the fact that we didn't play our best first half the very next game against Western, because it's really tough to come off a high like that and get yourself emotionally ready for another game.
It is, and that's with us as a program. We have to be able to learn from that and be able to fix it. Because the year before we had won a close rivalry game, and then the next year we played one and we lost, and then this year the roles were flipped. And so for us, when especially when you play in this conference, I don't care who you play, anyone can beat anybody. And so for us, it just goes back into we've got to be able to learn from that event and be able to take that as an opportunity to become better. And I really think our kids. I just get so happy to hear even a day later. So many of our kids are in the weight room or they're out on the field playing, and those are the things that it takes, that sometimes you got to go through those moments in order to achieve greatness on the other side.
Coach, as it turns out, we're not losing very much this year. Only three impact players that aren't going to be back for you. Uh, so, in terms of recruiting for next year, are you just going to try and go after the best available talent, or are there a couple of positions you're specifically going to try and fill?
I think defensive line is definitely one that we're going to have to do some major recruiting at to fix. Because like with the three players that you talked about, like David, Roppy, and Aselli, they all play defensive line, and so for us, I think we've got to be able to find some defensive linemen, some kids they bring in at mid-year, as well as some high school kids that we can redshirt and those things to be able to come in and play. We have a couple young players that we really like. They just need to grow up a little bit, and they'll get thrown in the fire early next year versus Highlands. I would definitely say, receiver and then offensive line or two that we really need to be able to improve as well, because I think that we have some great skilled players. I think we have good quarterback. I think we're about an offensive lineman short from achieving our full potential on the offensive line, because I thought our offensive line played better in the year, especially in our last game because we ran the ball for almost 300 yards. But I would definitely think that we need to be able to continue to improve that area. And then, like always, you're always just looking for the best players that want to be a part of something special and want to be a part of, um, such a program that has so much tradition, to be able to bring back. Ultimately our goal of being able to compete and win a Lone Star Conference championship.
We talk about the players that show up in the stats, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, the guys that make a lot of tackles, get interceptions. If you had to say there was one unsung hero, one person who didn't get the publicity but was instrumental in the success you had, who would you say was your unsung hero?
Uh, I would really say a couple kids come to mind. You know, the offense and defensive line, I don't think get enough credit, because again, like the defensive line, maybe because you can call out a tackle for loss or a sack or those things. Um, but really, you think of like the Hunter St. John's, the Sam Petrosky's, Christian Garego, like, and two of those names are New Mexico kids, the Justin Brewer, those type of young men that, like James Apsey, who's from El Paso. You just go through those names of kids that show up every day and they play the hardest positions on the field, especially in this conference because we face a lot of really big teams, and they just show up every day and they give their best effort, and they consistently do it at a high level. And especially with those kids, they don't get their name in the paper, like you said, not like the quarterback or the running back or a defensive back, um, but they're some of the best people on the team. And what's really exciting is that for the most part, we bring a majority back on both fronts. And so to be able to have that experience back, I think is going to bode well for the Hounds in 23.
Well, Coach, congratulations on winning the wagon wheel in epic fashion. Let's hope that when we talk to you this time next year, we're talking about winning both of our trophy games and going to the playoffs.
Thanks, Doc.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment. So we'll clear the set and we'll bring in our last guest from the fall sports season right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring to the set of Sportslook the head man of Greyhound Cross Country, Josh Harden, one of the star runners, the Greyhound women's cross country team, Lauren Griego, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Coach, we'll start out with you. The season is now complete, and looking back on it, what was the highlight of the season for you in terms of the females? What was your highlight in terms of the guys?
I think for the women's team, I think our performance at the LSC conference meet. I think we came out and we had a really good race. Although it didn't show up in our team standings, our girls really came and put together a great run, and they really ran for each other. I think that was, for me as a coach, seeing that, and for our staff, for our assistant coach who really works diligently with our distance group. I think that was really a highlight moment for us, being able to come out and really compete at a high level at the conference meet. I think that was, for men and women's both, we showed a lot of grit and a lot of heart, and we, ran selfless.
And for people that aren't really familiar with the sport of cross country, a lot of it is where you finish in terms of the actual standings,
Right.
but a lot of it is personal best, and you want to keep improving. And it really seemed that you had ladies and guys that were performing at their best when it counted most.
Definitely, definitely. It was big for us. I think, and I think also with cross country, it's not just about time. It's about where we place within the field. So the closer we can get between our first and our third runner and our third and fifth and sixth runner, if we can close those gaps time wise and place wise, I think that speaks volumes for the team and how we're competing. So I think from the start of the season to also to where we finished, as far as where our girls are within within the race and running to each other and running with each other and pushing each other on the course. I think it was night and day and a big improvement from our first race to our last.
Lauren, I've had Coach Harden on before, so we already know his background story. But for you, where are you from, and what was the process that got you to the team here at Eastern?
I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I originally was a soccer player, and my sister was a cross country runner. And I ran a little bit in middle school and decided I liked it, and I was really good at it. And I started beating my sister, and I loved that. And it kind of just took off, and I started running in high school. I came to look at Eastern. My dad told me I should look at all the campuses here in New Mexico, and I just love the campus, and I love the people. And they had a meet going on, and I talked to Coach Cavalunas when he was here, and I just started in the fall.
And if I remember correctly, you actually came from a pretty good high school program.
Yeah, we actually won state my senior year, and the previous years before that was pretty good too. So
And what is it about running? I had Marta Pascal on as my guest, and she talked about why she is so engaged in the sport of cross country and distance running. What does it do for you?
it's very freeing. Like in Albuquerque, there's a lot of mountain trails, so that's what I grew up running on, and the feeling of pushing past your boundaries and thinking you can't do something and then realizing you just ran 12 400s. It's crazy.
And that's amazing because that was exactly the same word that Marta used. She said that it was a freeing experience. So that great minds think alike, I guess. Coach, looking back at the beginning of the season when you became the head coach, sometimes you think you know what it's going to be like, and it actually turns out to be that way. And sometimes it's like, whoa, did not see that coming. So, what was kind of your aha moment this year as being the head coach?
Oh man, there's a few moments. I think the growth within the group for me was a lot of aha moments. I think um, we thought we were in one direction, and I think some things happened throughout the season. Some people, with injuries and um, with some people having some time away from the team, gave us a lot of opportunities to really understand, where we were at as a group. Not just the staff, but our student athletes. And I think kind of seeing the direction that our group can go and grow. I think for us was big aha moments, and I think that kind of led us to, you know, how we competed in the later end of the season, where there was more of individual, ending the season more as a team and more of that camaraderie that happened. And I think that led from some people's absence and also some people's um, commitment and where they were, and some people helping be gelled, you know, to help bring that camaraderie. So I think just kind of finding those people within the program that we had just within our team to be able to kind of create those aha moments, and I think that was big for us.
Lauren, when you came here, who was the cross country runner that kind of took you under her wing, showed you the ropes, helped you get acclimated to running on the college level? And who this year have you tried to be a mentor for?
Such a long time ago, freshman year. It's like before COVID. It's a different way of thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Kayla Cisneros, she was also new my freshman year. She came from NIMI. But we came from very similar backgrounds growing up, and we kind of became friends, and she kind of helped me through school and running and balancing both of those. So.
And who have you tried to mentor this year?
Elise Toya, we grew up together watching Lobo basketball games. Our parents have season ticket holders, and oddly enough, we've sat next to each other through the basketball games our whole life. And so just having her here has been nice for me, and I think maybe if she relates, it's been nice for her as well.
That is awesome. What a cool story. Well, Coach, looking ahead a little bit, you're obviously not only the head cross-country coach, but you're the guy that is in charge of track and field. And so what can we expect in the spring from track and field?
Oh, man, we got a lot of new faces in the program. For us, we've, in the past, the program has been a little bit more distance-oriented. I think the goal for us and our staff is to really make it a little bit more well-rounded. So I think, this year, even with some late recruiting and being able to bring some kids in, we're still not done. But there's a lot of new faces that are going to be on the track, as well as some people who have been Lone Star finalists to consistently since they've been here. So just to add into some new faces, some freshmen, as well as some junior college transfers, and some four-year transfers, I think that it's going to be interesting to see. As coaches, we have these high expectations, but we never really know until the gun goes off, But I think from looking at it that we do have some people that are going to come in and help right away. So we're hoping to put together a competitive team and to be competitive in some areas that we haven't, completely in the past. While also getting our cross-country group transition into the track, to be able to be in position to kind of help us. So it's an exciting moment, it's an exciting time, and we're hoping to bring a well-rounded team, to the conference.
Well, and obviously that plays to your strength because for people that may not have had a chance to see your episode where we learned about you, you were a Division I sprinter, so you can talk sprinter language.
Yeah. Actually, I was primarily a jumper, but I did dabble in the sprints until they told me they didn't need me. But yeah, it's definitely one of those areas. I think as a coach, though, I've had the benefit to since I started coaching some event groups like we talked about before that I probably had no business coaching, being able to work with the distance and even the throws. So for me, I'm just a track junkie. So I love to be everywhere and support all the events that I can at the track meet. So, for us and for me in this position and for our staff, we're all kind of like-minded in that. So, we want to see fireworks throughout the track, not just, on the sprint side, but as well as in the throwing areas, as well as in the pit, So it's going to be exciting and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Lauren, you're a student athlete. We've talked about the athletic part of it. Let's talk about the student. So what are you majoring in and what do you hope to do with your life?
My major is within history.
Good subject, I've heard.
It's pretty brilliant. I love history. I've always loved history. And when I went to college, I just wanted to focus on, I just love learning, basically. So I wanted to learn about what I was passionate about. And with a history degree, the original path was law school. And I'm still dabbling on what I want to do. So I'm going to take an extra year of school and go from there.
Have you ever thought about emulating your mentor and going into coaching?
I definitely have. I wanted to first maybe dabble in going to the military for a few years and be a JAG, or maybe Peace Corps, Peace or War. I don't know which one. But I definitely want to travel and see new places before I settle down, maybe become a history teacher and coach.
And looking at it, who were the big influences? Why did you become the person that you are, not just athletically, but all around?
That's a good question. My father is definitely someone he was a coach, basketball coach, coached me in track. He's a teacher. He's an EA. My great grandma Mary, she was a teacher. I grew up in a family of teachers, so I think they've always taught me the importance of just education and the power it holds.
Well, and it's a privilege for me to say you are one of my students. So it's been an honor to follow your career athletically, but also academically.
Appreciate it, Doc.
Well, congratulations on the success that you did have in cross country, and best of luck in the spring and moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll close this out, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. I'll finish up the fall by telling you a story about Alex Hawkins. Alex Hawkins was an NFL analyst, but before that, he was a wide receiver for the Baltimore Colts. Obviously, now they're the Indianapolis Colts. 55 years ago this week, he played in a game against the Washington Redskins. Obviously, now they're the Washington Commanders. And in that game, he caught a touchdown. And then 3 days later, he was arrested at 3:30 in the morning for participating in an illegal high-stakes poker game. Now, that was bad enough for the general manager of the Baltimore Colts because his guy had gotten arrested and had obviously broken curfew. But the worst thing about it was two other guys that got arrested were known to be associated with the mob. And so when the general manager came to visit Alex Hawkins in his jail cell, and he said, "Alex, how can you be so stupid as to associate with known mobsters?" And Alex Hawkins looked at him and said, "Do you know how hard it is to find people who are willing to play poker at 3:30 in the morning? You don't ask for character references." Well, on that happy note, we will say goodbye to the fall. When we come back 2 weeks from now, we'll be over into winter sports mode. And that obviously will conclude our episode for tonight. I'd like to thank Ty Hyatt, Josh Harden, and Lauren Griego for being my guests at A Floor Crew, directed by Mr. Logan. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.